All right, let's just get right into it. What if I told you there's a completely legal way for the super rich to live these incredible lifestyles and pay almost nothing in taxes? Seriously. This isn't some shady, complicated offshore thing. It's a system that's been hiding in plain sight for over 100 years. It's a three-step process that completely flips the rules of the financial game on their head.
And this, right here, lays out the core difference perfectly. When you get a paycheck, Uncle Sam takes his cut before that money ever even hits your bank account. But the wealthy? Well, they've figured out how to get their hands on cash in a way that isn't even considered income. So they get the full $1,000 while you or I might be left with, what, 700? That gap? That's where all the magic happens.
So how in the world do they pull this off? Well, it all starts with understanding this fundamental trap that, honestly, most of us fall into. We're all taught to focus on our income, right? But the wealthy, they focus on something completely different. They focus on their assets.
You know the path we're all told to follow? Go to school, get a great job, make a big salary. But the second you earn that salary, bam, you're hit with taxes, 20, 30, maybe even 40%. You're left trying to build wealth with what's left over. It's like trying to fill up a bucket that's already got a giant hole in the bottom.
The wealthy just flip this whole model upside down. Their main focus is on getting what are called appreciating assets. Things like growth stocks that don't pay out regular dividends, or real estate that's just quietly climbing in value. And here's the key. As long as you never sell these assets, all of that growth, all that increase in your net worth is basically invisible to the IRS. You can't tax wealth that isn't realized as income.
And this brings us to the strategy itself. It's this powerful three-part system that a USC law professor famously called buy, borrow, die. So let's break down exactly how this incredible financial architecture really works.
It's a simple but absolutely brilliant roadmap. First, you buy assets that just grow in the background. Then, you borrow against that growth to pay for your lifestyle, all tax-free. And finally, that die part, that's what locks in all the gains for the next generation. Let's dig into that first and probably most important step.
Okay, so this gets us to this hidden cost of paying taxes along the way, something called tax drag. Think of it like a parachute slowing you down. It's the effect that paying taxes every year has on your investment growth. So let's say you invest the same amount of money for 30 years. In a regular taxable account, you might wind up with about $700,000. But in an account where that growth is protected from yearly taxes, you could have almost $1 million.
That's almost a $250,000 difference. That's the penalty you pay just for playing by the standard rules. The whole buy phase is about avoiding this drag by holding assets that grow silently, keeping the taxman out of the picture and letting your money compound at full speed.
So this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? If the whole point is to never sell your assets to avoid taxes, how do you actually, pay your mortgage or buy a private jet? This is where the real genius of the strategy comes in. This is the borrow phase. The wealthy use this amazing financial tool called a securities-based line of credit. It's actually pretty simple. They walk into a bank, show them their giant portfolio of stocks, and the bank gives them a loan using those stocks as collateral. And here is the absolute critical point. The IRS does not consider borrowed money to be income. It's a loan, so you get cash deposited right into your bank account 100% tax-free. Let's look at an example. We'll call her Maria. Her portfolio has grown to $2 million. She needs cash, so she borrows against it. Now, get this. Her portfolio is still growing, let's say at 8% a year, which is earning her $160,000. The interest on her loan only costs her $91,000. So she's living on tax-free cash while her wealth is actually growing faster than her debt. She's making a profit of almost $70,000 a year just by borrowing.
Now, what was her other option? Well, if Maria had decided to sell $1 million of her stock to get cash, she would have been hit with a capital gains tax bill of roughly $250,000. So she could sell and hand the government $250,000, or by choosing to borrow instead, she pays nothing, zero. She gets all the cash she needs for her lifestyle, and her wealth just keeps growing, totally untouched by taxes. That is the incredible power of the borrow strategy. So what about the loan? What happens to that? This brings us to the final and maybe the most mind-blowing part of the whole thing, the die phase. There's a tax law called stepped-up basis, and what it means is that when you die and you pass your assets on to your kids, the tax clock completely resets to zero.
all those decades of untaxed gains are legally totally wiped away. Your heirs inherit the assets at whatever they're worth on that day, as if they just went out and bought them themselves.
Now, I know what you're probably thinking. This is awesome for billionaires, but what does this have to do with me? And that's the whole point. While you might not have a multi-million-dollar portfolio to borrow against, you can adopt the very same mindset. Let's talk about how you can build a similar financial architecture for yourself, just on a different scale.
The big idea here is to shift your thinking from just earning an income to actually building a tax-efficient financial structure. It's about being the architect of your own wealth, not just a passenger along for the ride.
So what do the blueprints for this new architecture look like for the rest of us? Well, first, you make your health savings account, or HSA, your absolute top priority. Second, you fund a Roth IRA every single year, no excuses. Third, you've got to stop the bleeding. That means getting rid of any high-interest debt, like credit cards. And finally, you never, ever leave free money on the table. Always get your full employer match in your retirement account.
Let's just focus on the HSA for a second, because it is the closest thing that we have to a perfect investment tool. It is the Swiss Army knife of financial accounts, and it's a foundation for your own tax-efficient design. Why? Because you get a tax deduction when you put money in, it grows completely tax-free, and you can pull it out completely tax-free for medical expenses. It's the only account that lets you avoid taxes at every single stage of the game.
When you boil it all down, this really just comes down to a choice. It isn't about how much money you make, it's about how you structure your financial life. Are you going to keep playing their game by their rules? Or are you going to start designing your own? And this right here is the absolute truth. The entire system is built to reward people who own things over people who earn a paycheck. By understanding this architecture of the tax law, you can start to make that shift from being just an earner who gets taxed at every turn to an owner who actually benefits from the way the system is designed.
So I'll just leave you with this question. You now know the rules that the wealthy play by, and the principles, they're accessible to everyone. You can start small with an HSA or a Roth IRA, and you can begin building your own tax-efficient structure today. The only real question left is, are you ready to start thinking like an architect?